Shocker, the Pentagon is a corrupt, slimy, sociopathic institution that doesn't care about the value of human life and is purely about making money for the defense industry. A report broke this morning in the Washington Post showing how the Pentagon stole taxpayer money and diverted it to defense contractors and used it to create military equipment and body armor. That's $1 billion of our money, taxpayer money, that was supposed to go to the Defense Department getting masks, PPE, making sure that people were able to have equipment necessary to combat the coronavirus, as there were mass outbreaks in the military at this time. U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper was going on TV and saying that he cared about keeping the military safe, as there were coronavirus outbreaks within the military.
Let's get to that urgent situation aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt as the captain is pleading for help. Is it time to evacuate that ship?
I don't think we're at that point, Nora. We were moving a lot of supplies and medical assistance out to the carrier in Guam. We were providing additional medical personnel as they need it. I'm pleased to report that none of them are seriously ill. At this point in time, we're trying to make sure that we contain the virus, that we deploy testing kits so we get a good assessment of how much of the crew is infected, and then, of course, taking other measures to ensure we can get the carrier up and ready again to continue its mission.
I mean, this letter from the commander of the aircraft carrier was pretty stunning. He said sailors do not need to die, and he recommended removing a majority of the personnel. Is that under consideration?
Well, nobody, of course, needs to die at this point in time. We're not at war. Priority number one is taking care of our service members and their families.
Well, it's obviously not priority number one, given the number of offensive wars that the defense industry, which Esper is a part of. He was a corporate lobbyist for Raytheon, one of the top lobbyists in the country, as reported by The Hill in 2015 and 2016. So he's no stranger to the military-industrial complex. In fact, he is an integral part to it. It's not the number one priority of the Pentagon to keep military members safe. We're constantly in these wars where we're going to foreign countries to secure some abstract geopolitical advantage or get a better leg up on oil, when we're maiming our military members, killing them, giving them PTSD. It's certainly not your number one priority. And keeping the United States safe is certainly not your number one priority either, as shown by the fact that you diverted money that was supposed to go towards keeping all of us, including members of the military, safe from COVID-19, and you gave it to your buddies in the defense industry. This is not just a Trump administration problem, although they are way more brazen about it. I mean, he literally put a Raytheon lobbyist as the head of the Defense Department, as the Secretary of Defense. But this goes back under Obama, it goes back under Clinton, of course under Bush, infamously. This is what the military-industrial complex does. It is there to enrich defense contractors, full stop. A $1 billion fund Congress gave the Pentagon in March to build up the country's supplies of medical equipment has instead been mostly funneled to defense contractors and used for making things such as jet engine parts, body armor, and dress uniforms. The CARES Act, which Congress passed earlier this year, gave the Pentagon money to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. But a few weeks later, the Defense Department began reshaping how it would award the money in a way that represented a major departure from Congress's original intent. The payments were made even though U.S. health officials believe there are still major funding gaps in response to the pandemic. There remains a severe shortage of N95 masks at numerous U.S. hospitals. These are the types of problems that the money was originally intended to address. The Trump administration has done little to limit the defense firms from accessing multiple bailout funds at once and is not requiring the companies to refrain from layoffs as a condition of receiving the awards. Some defense contractors were given the Pentagon money even though they had already dipped into another pot of bailout funds, the Paycheck Protection Program. Congress, at Trump's urging, is now debating whether to pass another massive stimulus package, and the Pentagon and defense contractors have called for another $11 billion to be directed toward their programs. In the months after the stimulus package was passed, the Pentagon changed how the money would be used. It decided to give defense contractors hundreds of millions of dollars for the fund, mostly for projects that have little to do with the coronavirus response. Defense Department lawyers quickly determined that the funds could be used for defense production, a conclusion that Congress later disputed. Among the awards, $183 million to firms including Rolls-Royce and ArcelorMittal to maintain the shipbuilding industry, tens of millions of dollars for satellite, drone, and space surveillance technology, $80 million to a Kansas aircraft parts business suffering from the Boeing 737 MAX grounding, and the global shutdown in air travel, and $2 million for a domestic manufacturer of Army dress uniform fabric. Cool. We're not at war. And the defense budget has massively increased under Trump. Bernie Sanders tried to decrease it by 10%, which would be still a level higher than before Trump entered office. And it was shot down overwhelmingly by a lot of Democrats, too. I believe the vote was something like 23 to 77, something like that. That's how ubiquitous, that's how strong the defense industry is. That's how arrogant they are. That's how entitled they are. They double dipped in taxpayer money and are still asking for $11 billion more in the next stimulus package. And they use the funds to just do regular business of propping up the military industrial complex when we aren't at war. So that is the reality of the corruption in the United States when it comes to almost every industry. But I don't think there's a more brazen branch of government than the Pentagon that is this nakedly corrupt.